What's up?
Welcome back to the PO3 Podcast, episode number 7. I'm Marcus Marx.
And I'm Victor Jr.
So today we're just going to get into basically where we left off from yesterday. The podcast got really deep. I wanted to say too, because I was so caught up in the whole podcast and everything that we were talking about, because it was a lot. And I was being honest as I possibly could be, but I was being negative. I felt like I was like really negative. I was in a like really bad state of mind yesterday, but it was real though, and I wanted to project that.
That's part of mental illness.
No, it was, dude. Yesterday I didn't eat all day.
So you got to take care of your body too.
I mean, but it's when if you're bipolar, you know that you have your manic states and you have your depressive states, which usually the depressive states you tend to binge eat more. And when you're in a manic state, depending on how long that lasts, you really don't have an appetite. And I haven't had an appetite for like 3 months.
So that's why there's a lot of up and down weight issues with people who are bipolar.
Yeah, for sure. Because I'll gain 20 pounds easy, like in the wintertime. And then when I start coming out of that and start developing more of an appetite, I'll try my best to eat healthy and cut all that off. But yeah, I haven't eaten since yesterday, really.
Oh, damn, you gotta munch on something.
But it affects my mood though. But I still have no appetite. So yesterday I was really negative. Even though I had all this energy and I can't sleep.
No, you know what? You were being real.
I was being real though.
You were being real of who you are and how you felt at that time. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, because I was listening back to what we did yesterday, and I was like,
no, that's all right. It was real.
We were rusty too, though. I was rusty. You did really well, but
no, you did good. But yeah, no, bipolar, it's, I don't know because I don't have bipolar. I was diagnosed with schizophrenia. But do you know what one of the leading causes of suicide? There's eating disorders, there's schizophrenia, there's bipolar disorder, drug use disorders, alcohol, there's depression and anxiety disorders. What do you think is the number one cause of suicide from all of those?
Go over the list one more time, please.
It's eating disorders, schizophrenia, depression, alcohol use, drug use, and anxiety.
Either drug use or anxiety, no?
Anxiety is number one, even above depression.
Yeah, I was going to say, because anxiety is, I feel like it's more universal. I feel like a lot of people can relate to anxiety because everyone has it on different levels. I feel like everyone has it in general. Just being a human, it kind of comes with it. Like all the paranoia and stuff in the world that we live in.
Now, which one do you think is more stigmatized out of all of those?
Oh, well, what was the other one before that?
Bipolar, drug use, alcohol,
anything minus all the above except anxiety.
Schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is the number one that is stigmatized, and it's only 0.29% compared to
I would feel like bipolar is more
anxiety.
stigmatized than schizophrenia.
No, it's schizophrenia. And then bipolar disorders after that. And then, so when it comes to suicides, though, it's the eating disorders is on the lowest, schizophrenia second, then bipolar disorder, and then it's the drug use disorders, then alcohol disorders, and then it's depression, and then not very much behind is depression from anxiety, but anxiety is the number one. On the list. And because
I can see why, because it's something you can't see. It's a cut that is invisible. It's an invisible cut. You can tell someone that you're feeling a certain way and you're panicked or whatever state of mind you're in, but it's not going to register with somebody who doesn't have it because it's impossible. It's like the wind. You can only feel it.
And it causes more effects in your body too because there's more tension.
It leads to other disorders, right?
Yeah.
Like the further into anxiety you go, the more you develop.
Well, because you're with anxiety, you're worried about a lot of, the future. You're worried about the future. You're worried about your finances. You're worried about being okay next year. And it just causes that tension. They get headaches and sweaty palms. It even causes a lack of sleep.
Yeah, insomnia is a big one. It'll keep you awake. But do you think anxiety, so it'll sometimes in certain cases develop an eating disorder? cause you to develop something like that? Because me, like when I'm in this state that I'm in now, I have no appetite and I won't eat for days. Is that considered
Well,
something
yeah, the
like an eating
anxiety,
disorder? Because you're supposed to
er,
eat 3 times a
yeah,
day.
anxiety is causing all of that. It's causing the so you have the anxiety, then you have the effects of that with the depression, and then you could get into drug abuse, alcohol abuse,
Hmm.
then eating disorders.
But yeah, I mean, listening back to the podcast yesterday, it is what it is. I was negative, but it's a real thing, you know.
You weren't negative. You were actually speaking on your truth at the time.
It's still the truth. Now I feel a lot more positive today. For whatever reason, I woke up. So you never know with this mental illness. You never know what you're gonna get. I'm not quoting Forrest Gump.
You never know what you're gonna
But you
get.
don't. You never know you never
No.
know what day is gonna be a good day and what day is gonna be a bad day. Sometimes you can fight that with your positive attitude.
Yeah.
Some people, what we talked about yesterday, are just either you're built that way or you're not built that way. It was what I was asking you. It's like what drives you to keep going and be positive like that? Because I feel like for me, like me, I just don't have that in me to be positive all the time. I'm more of a glass half empty type of guy, and you're like a glass half full kind of guy.
Yeah.
So even if I have these symptoms and I'm going through what I'm going through, there's people that do have bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, but they have a really positive outlook on life and they manage it well.
Yeah.
And they still force themselves to get up, work out, eat, do the basic things that,
All that took a lot of time, though. I didn't just become this way. It took time. It took some digging deep in my life. I did a lot of writing, a lot of journaling. I had to write stuff down. Okay, what is this causing? What is the effects? What am I allowing this to do? Am I allowing the burden of the sickness to take control of my life? But the number one thing that I had to do was accept my illness. I had to accept my illness and what it is for what it is. And I had to say, hey, this is what's wrong with me. It's like somebody who is missing a leg. They have to accept that they don't have the leg. So they
So
have to put that extra leg under there. And it's the same thing. You have to accept this is how it is. This is how my life is going to be. And I have to manage it. I have to manage it like you manage your household. You manage your life.
your mental household,
Yep,
you have to
that's
make sure
right.
that it's in order and
Yeah. The
make
only
sure there's
thing
not
is,
a bunch of cobwebs.
yeah, well, with schizophrenia, I have roommates, so.
Well, they help you clean. They pay rent.
Yeah, no, they don't pay any rent, so I got to kick their asses out. No, I'm on medications for that.
But if you, I mean, that's one of the things that you can elaborate on, accepting it, because I think that's, even though as much as I feel like I have, even though I know I have it, I still haven't accepted it. Like I don't know why, because it is stigmatized,
Yeah. Well,
and I don't like talking about
the
it.
accepting it is not just accepting the fact that you have this disorder. It's accepting the fact that other people are going to look at you differently because of that. I mean, people look at people differently no matter what, anyways, but they're going to look at you differently just because of that. And it adds more of a burden on your emotional life if you allow it to.
100%, because what did you talk about yesterday too? Getting over what people thought
Yeah,
about you and their
there you go.
opinions of you.
That's right.
Because if everything will kind of just fall into place if you allow yourself to just let go of the public's opinion on yourself and that stigma that comes with your mental illness. And I think that's maybe you're already at a point in your life where you're already past that, and that's why you're able to be positive. And
Yeah.
versus me, I'm still battling this shit every
Growing.
day.
And I'm going to be learning for the rest of my life, but you're still growing, and there's different points of growth, and then there's that valley that we hit.
You're on chapter 5 in the book, or
There you
7, and
go.
I'm on chapter 1. I feel like it. I feel like it's just a different chapters.
Okay, now you're recognizing that now. So you see that. So then
I got started late too.
and
I
that's
got
okay.
started really late. Like I didn't even till maybe a couple of years ago. I called Peter and I told him about that I got diagnosed a third time and I was actually seeking treatment as far as medication goes. Going back to my workouts and stuff, I got really in shape because of that. And
Well, you always have to get a second or third opinion. I mean, I did because schizophrenia. I was like, "What the fuck? I'm not schizophrenic."
Yeah,
I
so
thought it was just my own voices that sounded differently or something.
same for me. So I got a third opinion, but that's when I was really active about it and actually seeking help. But I started late as far as, okay, I knew something was wrong with me my whole life. And I had been told what was wrong with me, but ignored it because I was ignorant. Being a kid, I was being young in my 20s and stuff. So I didn't really start actively noticing and paying attention and studying to my behavior, studying my behaviors and all the things that I do until a couple years ago. And that's why I feel like I'm still in the process of beginning chapter 1. I'm still in the intro of accepting it and learning how to really not care about people's opinions about it, because as much as I admit it, or as much as I hate to admit it, I do care about what people think. And my fiance and I had this conversation the other night. Remember when I called you guys and
Oh yeah.
I told you guys that we had a big old conversation, and I was kind of forced into just opening up and spilling my true feelings and stuff. And one of the issues was going on disability for this, because I felt like I remember telling her that I just feel like a puzzle piece that doesn't fit into society. Like I'm just a puzzle piece that doesn't fit into the picture. It just doesn't fit in that spot that they wanted to go in. They're trying to force it into that spot, and it just does not fit, and it doesn't work. Ends up falling out of the picture, and that's why I would end up unemployed and stuff. But
And that causes the other emotions too, the depression and stuff,
exactly,
because you feel your worth doesn't feel it. You feel like you're a lack.
I've always wanted to just hold down a regular job and stuff because I wanted to fit into that picture when I just don't belong there. As hard as I tried and as hard as I would always act up and get fired and stuff, or depression I would call in. But one of the issues that we talked about was I'm afraid to go on disability because what is your family going to think? Another thing, which who cares? If that's what I need to do to have some kind of income while I work on myself, then that's what I need to do, and I shouldn't be embarrassed of it.
That's right. But you know what? You're always going to care. You're always going to care about what your spouse, partner thinks. The thing is training your mind to not necessarily just start not caring. It is what it is, and you're not going to be able to change anybody else's mind whatsoever. Just like somebody might not be able to change your mind. You have to accept. So you got to have acceptance, and it's accepting that other people aren't going to change their mind. It's accepting the fact that family's going to always say something. They're going to always think differently no matter what you do. Because I'm telling you this right now, if they still don't know that you have a disorder, a mental health disorder, then I shouldn't really even say disorder, mental health.
Mental illness.
Mental illness. If you have that and they don't know about it, they're going to talk about you because you can't hold down a job. So they're going to always have something to talk about. No matter who it is, everybody's always going to have something to talk about. So it's better to step into your truth and live your truth and be in your truth.
That was one of the, yeah, exactly. Well, let me give you my perspective on that. And I 100% agree with you, because I went through the same exact thing with my family, or at least my mom and my dad, my sister and my girlfriend or my fiance. So I was always afraid of them judging me because of that. Because anytime I'll go to my aunt's house or whoever, my grandma's house, they always ask you. It's just one of those things that they ask you, how's it going and how's work? And my response to that would be, what do you say? I'm out of work again. This is just a consecutive pattern that they would see with me throughout the years.
You feel like you just want to walk in there with a loser hat.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's stamped on my forehead, like fuck up, because most of my family, they're old school. They've had their jobs for 30 years.
Yep.
In the same field and never left, never quit. Never. And I was the complete opposite of that. And I have some family who can relate to that, but if they don't understand what's going on and that I do have this thing called a mental illness, quote, then they're just going to think, what the hell is this kid's deal, So going forward, I had to explain that after I got my third diagnosis. I called my mom, called my dad, and explained to them, like, look, if you ever wondered why I was the way that I was growing up, and if you ever felt like it was your fault for the way I turned out, I just have to let you know that you did your best, and I'm messed up because of my own issues, and there was only so much you could do. I behaved the way I behaved because of this, and because of this mental illness. All my moods were so up and down, and the way I behaved, and the reason I was quitting jobs and stuff was because of this. It has nothing to do with you. I was gonna come out like this regardless, or whatever happened to the trauma that I went through as a kid. Either triggered it or it didn't, or it was gonna happen either way. So this had nothing to do with you. I just wanted you guys to know that you did the best that you possibly could, and I hope that lifts a weight off of your shoulders. You know what I mean? It's that way you don't have to constantly feel like you're a failure as a parent. So that was my job to put that out there and let them understand. So now there's a clear, like, we're all on the same page now.
Yeah.
So if I hadn't have told them that, even though they already knew, my mom knew, my dad didn't know for whatever reason. He kind of just got lost in his own
And that's why
world.
a lot of suicides happen, because they and a lot of parents don't even understand that somebody was dealing with a mental illness at the time, and then they start blaming themselves. Why weren't they happy? Why weren't they? And a lot of suicides, they go undiagnosed. A lot of suicides that have mental illness, the person who committed suicide goes undiagnosed because of a mental illness. So the family's stuck thinking, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? And a lot of times the person who committed suicide doesn't even realize that they themselves have that mental illness.
Because they never went and got checked out, and
Never
nobody
went
ever
got
told them.
checked.
Because for me personally, I felt like it was my responsibility to let them know that there was a reason, that you don't have to wonder anymore. And here's the answer, like, happy birthday, here it is. Like, here's the reason why I was doing what I was doing. That was one of the big weights that got lifted off my shoulders when I found out for sure, because I was always wondering, like, what the hell's wrong? There's got to be something. And when I got the diagnosis, I was like, finally something
Blame
that
your
now I can
parents, blame society,
now I
blame
can
God. God, why'd you make me to go through this? It's
now
all
I
your
can go
fault.
through the steps of trying to fix it because I know what it is. And I felt like it was my responsibility to let them know. So now we're all on the same page and it's out in the open. So if I tell them that I'm unemployed, or if I'm ever in that situation, they understand why.
And that's
You
the
know?
thing with you wanting to go get diagnosed. A lot of people are, even if they feel those symptoms a little bit, they're afraid to go get diagnosed because of they're afraid of the stigma behind it.
I was afraid to have that talk with them, especially with my dad. I mean, people will surprise you sometimes. He was a lot more understanding than I thought. I mean, my mom already knew. Like, remember when I told you when I met up with her to talk about it for
Oh
the first
yeah,
time, and I told her, I was like, I got a diagnosis. Here's what it is. She's like, I know.
yeah, that's
She's
right. I
like,
remember
she's
you
like,
told me.
already, yeah,
Moms always know.
yeah. Well, she was the one who took me when I was a kid to go get diagnosed.
Oh, okay.
You know, she just didn't tell me because I said no to, or she said no rather, to the medications because she knew that I was afraid of them. And the whole reason I didn't want to be on medications was because of consuming a chemical that messed up my brain chemistry. So it was just this weird, vicious circle just that never ended. So long story short, she already knew.
Yeah.
I'm sure my dad knew, but
Denial probably.
I don't know. Maybe he didn't know.
Well, I mean, if you think about a lot of parents, they go into denial. I mean, even a lot of old school parents,
Uh-huh.
if I've heard stories where they told their parents, "Hey, I was diagnosed with schizophrenia," and the parents like, "No, that's not true. It's just no, it's not true."
Well, some
And
people still think it's like not real or something. A lot of people think because of the stigma that it's just one of those things
well,
that
because they're not
get
living it.
over it, suck it up.
Yeah, that's right. And it's because they're not living it. They're not going through it. They're not walking in your shoes. And that's another thing on the outside of mental illness is people aren't going through it. But just because you're not going through something doesn't mean somebody else isn't, you know?
I'm still kind of in limbo between those two states because sometimes I feel like, am I just being a baby or what is it? Is it circumstantial or is it something that's out of my
That goes
control?
back to your acceptance.
But yeah, exactly. Because I know it's out of my control and I'm powerless over this thing. I really am powerless.
It's acceptance.
I've never. It took me a while to get to that point where I can say I am powerless over this, and there's nothing I can do. But now that I'm at that point,
You have power over it now because your
in a
choices
way,
from now on, well, your choices from now on, depending on what type of treatment you're getting, counseling, psychology, medication, those are all your choices.
to
And
be
that's
honest, though,
being on top of it. Are you?
no, I'm not. I kind of gave up in a way. I just like I don't really feel like putting in that work because it is so much work. You understand of anybody and
Oh yeah.
of how much work it requires to if you want to get better to pull yourself from the depths.
But
It's a lot of
it
work.
was making that choice of accepting and getting that help. And that's why I feel when you had asked me, how can I feel this way now? And it's because of that work that I went through, the work that I put in, because life is work. You have to put in the work. You have to do it. And that's the whole reason why I developed the Dig Deep Journey program. And it's to help not just people who have suffered with mental illness or are suffering with mental illness. It's for even people who don't suffer with mental illness, but suffer from some type of deep-rooted belief or blocks that they have in their life that keep them from moving forward, because a lot of those are blocks.
Still mental.
It's still mental.
So what is a dig? I heard you mention it yesterday, but I didn't ask you to plug it or get into it. What is it? Like, is it something you created?
Yeah, it's a program that I created because when I was struggling with accepting my diagnosis, and then after I accepted my diagnosis and getting on medications, there was still, I was striving for more. I knew there was something else I had to do, and I could not take those extra steps. There was always something coming up, and I was either making the wrong choice, going into the wrong thing, and I had to realize that all of that stemmed from my own blocks within myself. So I had to go back. I created a few forms that helped me go back into my whole entire life and actually write down exactly what it was, those negative experiences. And then I wrote down and on the sides of those, and I explained to myself, okay, this is what happened and this is what I need to do to get rid of that. And I worked on that, and it took me a few years to do that because I didn't have a program to follow. And so when I was thinking about it, I was like, shit, why don't I just create something that will help others, that will get them to where I wanted to be quicker than the time that it took me? Because if I could have had something like that I have created right now, damn, I would have been way more ahead right now in life.
So
But
so what is it? It's like a guideline. Is it a website?
it's a guideline. Yeah, it's VJ Inspires.
Is it like an instructional?
It's instructional. I have instructional videos. I have all the PDF files that they download. They do the work forms on there. And if they don't have a printer, they could just do it on a workbook for themselves.
Where
And
can I
it's
get this at?
VJinspires.com. They go and they subscribe, then they'll get an email, and they could go and check out my program. And I have that program discounted too because I didn't want to have a high priced
Oh, so
program.
it's not a free thing. It's a okay.
No, it's paid, but it's worth it. You know, it's
How much
my
is it?
own journey, $98.
And it's like a year, or it's just
It's
for the
It's just for a dig deep journey. And what they do is they go in there, they purchase the program, they get the link to enter the program, and it's a 6-segment course for that program. And that 6-segment course is a guided course. It's completely guided to where I have all the forms, and I
You
have
created this yourself?
all myself. And I created the forms, and I did videos to go with those forms to exactly explain how to do it, because I want people to be successful in their own dig deep journey.
And this is all based off experience because
All my experience.
you've come a long way. So this
Yeah.
is not all just like some BS that you put together.
That's right.
This is actually like
That's
something
right.
from deep. You dug deep to create.
That's
this.
right. I mean, I had to. What makes a better expert than actually walking in the shoes of it, actually going through the experience of it? And so, like I said, I had to create something that was much easier for people. If it helped me, it might not help everybody, but it will help somebody. 1 or 2 or 4, 100 people. It will help somebody, and it's the journey of digging deep. It's a hard journey, and it could be. I cried a lot when I did my dig deep journey because of a lot of the experiences that happened to me.
Mhm.
You know, but it was finding those experiences, embracing those experiences, and you either use them or lose them. Now, what I mean by using them or losing them, it's if it doesn't serve you in your life purpose, or it won't assist other people through you, then you got to lose it. But if it will serve you in your life and your life purpose, and it will assist other people, then you got to use it, because we hold on to these blocks or deep rooted beliefs. And it's like holding on to a box that is only weighs 15 pounds. And if you keep holding on to that box, what happens? It feels heavier and heavier, right? Well, if you hold on to all that emotion within your life, it gets heavy. That's why people feel heavy. It weighs you down, and it makes the depression worse.
That's where that expression, she's got a lot of or he's got a lot of baggage.
A lot of baggage. Exactly. So, because you're holding on to it. Well, better yet, throw it down and use it as a stepping stone. Because
throw it down, unzip it, and look through it.
Yeah,
and see
right.
what you don't need and throw it out.
Throw it out, and then the rest
Dust
of it.
that bag off.
Yeah, the rest of it, throw it down, use it as a stepping stone, because you're either going to use it or lose it. If it doesn't serve you or your purpose, lose it. If it serves you and your purpose.
So yeah, just taking an inventory on mentally what belongs there and what shouldn't be there.
And that's exactly what I did. That's how I created this program, was through my life experiences, and I eliminated stuff that doesn't I don't need to utilize in my life, and the stuff that I actually can use, I use it for the rest of my life, and I also use it to help others so they could have a much quicker journey. So I'm like a guide for your own dig
Now
deep
that's good
internal
because
journey, if you think about it.
no, yeah, it's shamanistic, I guess.
Kind of, I guess.
I mean, that's what they
uh,
do. They teach based off life experiences and just offer their wisdom to people that are lost and can't find that path for themselves. Because a big part of it is finding the right path to go down to get better.
That's
It's a
right.
really hard path to find because of the stigma. There's a lot of roadblocks that you're gonna encounter on the way there.
What I also included in that, so that I know that when somebody downloads the program and utilizes the program, I also included a 25-minute coaching with that, so that they could, after they're completed with it, I could go through it with them again and make sure that they stay on that right track. And it's only 25 minutes, but it's a lot of time,
Mhm.
and we go through it and we say, okay, this is what you could use, or this is what you could lose. And it helps them and it helps others. And I also created a free form for people that they could just go to my website, vjinspires.com, and they could subscribe. But I also have a downloadable form that they could grab, either print or view. And that form's going to help them in the areas of, it's going to help them decide which areas to dig deep in your life, because there's many areas in our life. There's so many different layers. There's layers that cause fear in your life. There's the layers that cause anxiety in your life. There's the layers that keep you from your own success, keep you from earning money, keeping you from your full potential. All those areas need work. And there's a reason why you can't move forward. There's a reason why you can't take that extra leap. There's a reason why you can't get over that little thing in your life, because you have to go within, you have to dig deep. And that's the whole reason that I created this, is through my own discovery through self.
And you can get that at
vjinspires.com.
Did I tell you? That's pretty dope. Congrats for creating that. I created this morning. So we have an Instagram profile now. I had a secondary
Oh, good.
account, and I put all of our info on there and stuff.
Awesome.
So it's PO3 Podcast Instagram. It's P.O.3. So I'm gonna work on that. I mean, the further we get into it, the more episodes we do. I don't know if I should change it to Party of 3 Podcast and try and get that one if it's a little bit more simple, or PO3, because they got to put the dot O dot 3, and then it's like it has an underscore podcast, but it's up there now. So all I've got uploaded so far is a picture, but we're gonna be uploading.
That's the logo. I like that. That's
Yeah,
pretty
the logo.
badass.
We're gonna I'll be uploading clips and stuff on there eventually. I mean, depending on how everything goes, I would like to do a video portion of this. I know that's way
yeah.
in the future, but for now we just have audio to offer. But we do have a podcast or an Instagram page that we're gonna be uploading on, as well as our SoundCloud. And I'm still
Nice.
trying to work on the SoundCloud link. I'm gonna go in there today when I have access to it and try and change the handle to it, like the /
Oh,
whatever.
okay, yeah.
Because I tried searching it on just a regular web browser, and it's hard to, it just doesn't pop up for whatever reason. So I put the link though in the Instagram to the SoundCloud for these episodes.
I was thinking about it last night after you sent me the link of what we recorded, and I was listening to the whole thing, and I just thought to myself, how many people could listen to this and not feel alone?
A lot.
A lot, because mental illness is big. It's so big not just in America, but in the whole entire world. And I was really, really proud of both of us, because we're putting ourselves out there. We're being vulnerable. We're being transparent, and we're showing people that this is who we are. This is how we live. And this is exactly what's going on in our life. And no one out there is going to be able to feel alone anymore. They're going to resonate. And that just tickles me inside, that people are going to be helped. That's awesome.
It tickles you. No, I get it though. 100%. I understand that. Because I feel the same way. aside this, I've never had nobody to talk about it with. I've always kept it to myself. I've never had any friends that I could talk about this with. Anybody. Peter is my cousin, and he's like one of the only people I can really talk about this with. And you, that's kind of messed up, you know, because it's not just me.
Because of stigma.
Yeah, it's not just me. I'm not the only one that has these type of problems. It's everybody. So imagine other people who have less family than I have. Who are they going to talk about it with? They don't. They just go straight to the wrist.
Oh yeah, they go straight to the wrist. Or you know that actually the wrist is one of them, but 53% of suicides is used with a firearm.
Yeah, that was. If you want to talk about that, I can elaborate on it if you have anything to ask me, because I know you wanted to get in today about suicide.
And this is Suicide Awareness Month.
Because my head lately, especially this year, has been leaning a lot in that headspace. I've been in that headspace for a while, and I'll tell you, it sucks, but it's tempting. As sad as it may be to talk about, and as hard as it may be to talk about, it's a real thing, and it is something that is on my mind. And I do have a firearm. I have a couple of them, and that was why I don't necessarily belong with one. But at the same time, I got to protect what I have to protect. You know, I just have to have the discipline and hope that I don't go down that road.
And think about this though: if you do use it on you, who's going to protect what you have to protect?
Well, no one. That's
Exactly.
the reason why I choose. That's always the reason in the end why I choose not to. It's for the others around me. Because if it were different and I didn't have what I have now, I'd be a goner for sure. I already know that. Like, that's not even a question. Why am I going to stick around? Because that was kind of where we left off yesterday. Why am I going to stick around if I'm not getting any happiness out of this existence that I have? I know it's your job to create it and pursue happiness, but a lot of the times you don't even get to that point. It's just all work up to that point. You're just falling and getting up the whole entire time. And in my head, I'm like, why am I going to keep pushing forward if every single day is just a freaking struggle? Like, all you're trying to do every single day is just get through the fucking day.
And it seems like the more you try to get through it, the more shit happens to you.
It just becomes a big, giant timeline of you just trying to get through the day. And it's like at some point you ask yourself, how much longer am I going to just try and get through it? I'm sick of trying to get through it. Like, there's been so many times where I just, like, I wish I could just be a normal functioning person who can just hold down a regular job, go to work and just do it consistently and not have these crazy mood swings. No, I know, but like these crazy mood swings up and down all the time, like being triggered and being so irritable to the point where I just want to snap and throw it. Like, I'm sick of that. Like,
that's because that's something within you. It's that anxiety. It's that bipolar in you that you're dealing with, and it's that
bipolar, OCD, ADD, PTSD. What?
It's an internal wrestling match.
Your
whole body and your mind is just wrestling with each other.
Yeah, big time.
And that's why you got to get it out. You got to talk about it. You got to journal. That's one of my biggest things is journaling. Because of me journaling, that's the whole reason why I was able to put out my program is because I journaled it.
I've tried to write stuff down, but it just doesn't work for me.
Speak it out. Well, that's what we're doing now.
I'm speaking it out right now. Because right? I've tried to write it down before, and I've tried doing these little challenge things, and it doesn't work for me. It's not something that works for me, but there's been a lot of people I've heard that if they write it down, it works for them.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, good for you if that works for you. It's just not my approach. But what I mean by like being normal, I know there's no really such thing as normal because you're going to have your ups and downs. But I want to minimize that window of the time that it does happen in, because for me, it's on a daily basis. And what I mean by normal is, can I spread that out and have those incidences be circumstantial rather than because a chemical imbalance? Do you understand? And that's another thing that I battle with on the daily too is, do I get on medication? I don't know, because I've heard in a lot of cases it just makes it worse. Some people, it takes 3 years to get that cocktail right.
Yeah. It took me about 2 years to get my schizophrenia cocktail right.
And I'll be honest, I'm afraid of going down that journey. I'm terrified of taking medicine. I'm terrified of it. I've had a prescription for it sitting in my nightstand for a year now, and I haven't touched it.
This is the thing that I was I was struggling with that at first as well. And I was like, do I stop? What do I do? And I was seeing my psychiatrist. I started the medication
What
and
are you on?
risperidone. I'm on risperidone. So they started me off on lower doses, then slightly increased it. And then I stayed on a certain cocktail for a little bit and then they had to increase it again. But
Because if you have, sorry to cut you off, but if you have more than one mental illness or a disorder like an OCD,
they
they're going
have
to
to,
try and hit all of those, but they
yeah,
do it one by one. So me, for example, if I say I have 5 things wrong with me, they're going to just treat the bipolar first and then get that tuned in and then add stuff later. So that's why you
they're
said
gonna
a
do the
cocktail.
more dangerous, what's
Okay, so they put you on whatever milligrams you're on
mhm.
and then what?
And then, of course, the psychiatry, seeing psychiatrists, also seeing an additional counselor. It was, well, it's not funny, but I started to um, develop depression. And I just felt very, very sad because I felt alone. And the reason why I felt alone is because these voices that I heard in my head all these years were no longer there. So I felt like a sense of abandonment. And I actually wanted to stop taking the pills. And a counselor had asked me, how do you feel now? Do you feel so much better? And I told her, no, I feel sad. And she said, why? And I said, because I miss my voices. I miss Jones. I miss Nikolai. And I really do miss them a lot. They were my support, they were my anchor in my life. And
Not all of them though.
no, I had a voice named Jeremy that was always trying to get me to go into the closet, hang
Do you hate
myself.
people that really have that name Jeremy now? Like, do you feel a certain way about them if you ever meet someone named that? There has to
Sometimes,
be, right?
sometimes I do, and I'm like, damn, I wonder if
Man,
that's
fuck Jeremy, man. You don't even know
fuck
him.
Jeremy. Hit him. No,
I
I'm
get
just
that though
playing.
because I could never imagine my life without depression. So I always wonder, like when I get to that point and it's not there, am I gonna even feel this like normal? Am I gonna feel like something is missing because that depression isn't there anymore? Because I feel like I don't know if it's just everybody or it's just me, but I feel like maybe deep, 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 deep down, if I dig far enough, there's a part of me that maybe feeds off that negativity and that depression. As crazy as it
And
may seem.
and why does it make you feel that way?
I don't know.
You don't know. And
No,
that's where counseling and psychology comes in.
probably because my mind is just wired that way for so long, and I'm so used to being in this pattern of thinking to where it's almost like an addiction. But even though it's out of my control, depression, there's still times where maybe I do crave it a little bit.
Well, that's why people get addicted to drugs because they want it like me. I was taking methamphetamine. I was doing it for years. For years I was doing it, and then I started shooting that up, and that doing those drugs kind of took the burden out of my head of being worried about what people were thinking, of me feeling less than because I did have a sickness, and then the stigma of it, until I finally had to just check myself into, therapy and go into rehab and deal with that and go through that and then get myself medicated. And it's just basically, it's going to take some time, but you have to go through it. You have to go through that valley. You have to keep on walking and moving forward if you really, truly want to be much more happier in your life. I'm not saying it's for everybody. I'm just speaking for myself.
Yeah, I was
That's
gonna.
what my choice was.
Have you ever heard of like for anybody really with addiction or mental illness approaching it through psychedelics? Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, I have.
Because I was
Shrooms
listening
and
to yeah,
acid. I
well,
did acid a couple times.
nothing man made. It's always acid is man made, right? LSD is. What is it? Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley in the '60s. He was an accident, right? That's how he created LSD. Um, Getting away from the point, but yeah, I was listening to something the other day, and they were saying like if you have a mental illness or something like OCD, so your brain just kind of develops these patterns, right? So he was saying and over the years, these patterns you kind of get stuck. You
Hmm.
get stuck in,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
imagine those patterns and those thoughts as grooves in your mind.
It roots into your mind.
Yeah, it's rooted. So basically, what some of these, at least what the studies show, that these psychedelics do is imagine your brain as a mountain, and on that mountain being your brain. The snow on top of that mountain is all just your chemistry and stuff, and the people going down on the sleds are your thoughts. And the longer you have the same thoughts for the amount of years, you just imagine going down a hill of snow on a toboggan. It's
used
going to
to it.
create these grooves, and over time, you have this groove that's just so deep, and that's the pattern you decide to go down. That's the path that's just got embedded into your mind because of all the you know the the pattern that you got stuck in over the years. So what psychedelics is supposed to do apparently is it creates like a fresh blanket of snow, and those patterns kind of get erased, and you have more. Now you have freedom to choose your paths different rather than falling into that one that had been
Yep.
created
Because
over
you're
the years.
always trying to run away from something, but the problem is you're trying to run away from something, getting into something else.
No, but do you know what I mean? Like scientifically, like so
Yeah, I get it,
those
yeah.
thoughts, because they do create patterns in
Oh,
your
yeah.
head, and it's
And
like
we
on the
stay comfortable in those patterns.
on the micro level, it does create these physical pathways, neural pathways
Yeah.
in your brain, which are those negative thoughts, and that's where you get stuff like OCD. That's why it gets worse. It's hard for it because as hard as you try to pull yourself out of those patterns, I deal with it myself. I'm again powerless to it. I still, because of those patterns are so embedded into my to my brain chemistry, and I need something to repave that and create something fresh so I can make these new patterns so I don't fall into that. Which is, I was asking, do you know anything about that? Like psychedelics, do you?
Oh yeah, when I did acid, it was like a whole new world. I was somewhere else. I was happy. I wasn't really hearing the voices. I was seeing a bunch of different shit, but it just took me away. It took me into another world, away from this world, and it was more of a happy feeling, and I didn't feel lack or want, but it was just temporary. And that's the thing. That's why I come to where you have to accept who and what you are and what's going on with you and walk the path of fixing it or
Well,
doing your best to fix
least
it.
resistance, because that's where all the work is. But
Well,
I mean, I'm not saying psychedelics is gonna fix it, but it's
no.
definitely gonna help you in certain situations.
Or we think it
view
helps
it
us,
from a different
but it's only
perspective.
temporary.
Well, I mean, I don't know enough about it to understand if it is temporary or not. Because yeah, I feel like for some people it lasts, and then that feeling only lasts for so long, then you forget about it. But that's how you.
Well, that's how addiction comes in because you get that really good feeling for a little while and then that feeling's over and then you're trying to chase that good feeling. That's why people get addicted. That's why people become alcoholics. They
try to
they
recommend
drink and drink and drink.
microdosing for that.
I heard about that. I don't know too much
Honestly,
about
that
that
would be
though.
something that I'd be really interested in if I can go somewhere and just have it like clinically done. I'd be willing to try that. As ironic as it sounds, because I'm afraid of like any I don't even smoke weed for specific reasons, whatever. But if they offered that at some point in the future, I wouldn't be against it. I would be willing to try it, because at this point I'm willing to try anything except medication. I'm afraid to try that.
See, and I'm doing great on my medication.
Because apparently, like with the microdosing, what it does is you're just getting a little bit to the point where if you do feel anything, you've taken too much. But what it does is it's supposed to stimulate whatever parts of your mind that are known for healing parts of the brain that have been damaged by depression or
Yeah.
PTSD. And that's where the study on psychedelics and microdosing comes in. And I wish I knew more about it and stuff. I don't really.
Oh, we'll research it and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah,
one of these days
I
on
do
the
want to
show.
get into it because it ties into mental health directly. And
Yeah, we'll talk about it one of these. Well, we'll do a lot more research, and that way we know what we're saying, and then we'll.
yeah, because
we'll
I don't
talk
know
about it on
enough
the
about
show.
it. I just wanted to know if you knew anything about
No,
it.
I'm curious now. I want to
Because
check it out.
it is considered a treatment for it. Because you ever seen Vice TV?
Yes,
There
I
was
like Vice.
there was a segment that they had on ayahuasca, and these people go to
I saw that.
and basically they're all just people that either deal with addiction, trauma, or mental illness. One person had bipolar on there.
Yeah,
One person was an alcoholic, but they go down to a jungle in Brazil,
Brazil.
and they meet
yeah.
up with these shaman, and they have this ceremony where they ingest the psychedelic called
and they throw
ayahuasca.
up and get all sick and all that.
And
I
what
saw
what it
that.
is just the liquid version of DMT. And you guys have all heard of DMT before, I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
with the Joe Rogan podcast being out there. But it's a trip that
Yeah.
lasts for 8 to 9 hours depending on the dose. But it's supposed to heal you from the inside out. So, but yeah, you purge a
Oh, I
lot
see.
and stuff like that. But I don't know if I'd be able to willing to go that far into it as far as like going to the jungle and stuff.
No.
But I've even heard though, like people that have mental illnesses, it's kind of like a slippery slope because you're messing with that brain. Is it going to trigger it and make it worse?
Yeah,
Or is it going to make you
right.
better? You just don't know. You're kind of gambling.
Yeah, they gotta study
Hmm.
it more.
But that's how deep this whole thing goes, dude. It's like there's so many, it's one of those things where you can't just put a Band-Aid on it. You have
Oh
to,
no, you have to.
how do you fix it? I don't think anybody knows.
It's they could medicate it and cover it, but is what it is. Like I said, for myself, speaking for myself, is I had to go through that accepting that this is what I have, and there is a stigma on it, and people are afraid of it. And until I started to research more and noticing that more people suffer from anxiety, and anxiety is actually worse than
Do you have anxiety?
schizophrenia. I don't know. I can't. I don't feel
Do
like I
do you
do.
ever get anxious or feel like overwhelmed?
Once in a while, I'll do if I think about my past, like a situation that
That sounds like
happened.
PTSD though.
Yeah, that's
But
more
that
like
triggers anxiety.
PTSD. Yeah,
So the
exactly.
feeling,
So there's one right after the other, But I now, because of where I'm at in my life, because of digging deep and going through my dig deep journey, I could get over it more easily. I'm saying, okay, I could sit down with myself and say, hey, this is what it is. This is what I'm going through. I told you about this yesterday when I had that memory back about my ex, Nick, and how he tried to kill me. And then I started feeling that anxiety. My palms were sweaty. My mouth
so
started to
yeah,
get dry.
that
And
is
then,
anxiety.
yeah, and I went into the shower and I said, okay, I need to release this again. I need to go back and remember who I am and what I am. And remember that I am not in control of anybody else in their mind, but I am in control of my life and in my mind. And this is what I'm not going to allow this to do to me. I'm not going to allow this to keep me from moving forward. I'm not going to allow this to be a burden in my life right now. This is what I'm going to do. Boom, it's gone. I got to get rid of it because I have to live.
Do you deal with OCD?
No.
Because apparently that's an anxiety disorder, right, Peter? Do you
Yeah.
know if it's an anxiety disorder? It is, right? It's a form of it. That's basically where it comes
I
from.
know
I deal
people
with
have
OCD,
OCD.
so I guess
Yeah.
I still am dealing with it. Because personally, yes, I've dealt with anxiety and I deal with it today, but definitely not as severe as it used to be. Because when I was a kid, 13 and up, through the reason I didn't graduate high school was probably because of OCD. I mean, anxiety.
And what does that cause for you? What is OCD
Well,
doing?
back when it first started happening to me and I was completely unaware of what it was and trying to figure out what was wrong with me, it presented itself as like out of body almost experience because I would panic so much and I would get tunnel vision, I would get numb, and I would just kind of dissociate. I don't know if that was, so it was like an accumulation of like all kinds of different things, but I'm guessing the root of it was anxiety. Okay, I just wanted to interrupt for a second. I was listening back on the edit and I just thought it was important to mention that what the cause of my anxiety actually was, and what triggered it. As I mentioned, I was 13. Well, when I was 13, there was an incident involving experimenting with marijuana, and long story short, it had been laced with a certain substance that I was unaware of, and it basically just blew my mind, and that's what initially triggered the anxiety post experience. So the experience I had was really, really bad. It was traumatic for me. I was hallucinating, just everything that you could associate with a really bad psychedelic trip. And that was more or less, actually, that was the cause of my anxiety. And I wouldn't doubt it that that's what kind of triggered everything else and just made the dominoes all fall. But that was basically the reason why I had anxiety in the first place. And that was the root cause of it for me. And I would get full blown panic attacks to where, all right, I'd be sitting in my room doodling, whatever. If somebody came in and surprised me from behind, like tapped on my shoulder, like my mom, one incident I was drawing, came in, walked in, and she scared me. And that triggered my anxiety to the point where it ruined my whole weekend. Like I would have full blown anxiety for like 2 days straight and I couldn't get out of it. All I remember explaining to my parents was I feel like I'm stuck and I can't get out. That's the only way I was able to convey it to them.
Do you still feel the way sometimes now?
So, okay, so over the years, I had gone through it for so long, having these panic attacks. I remember my dad told me one time, he's like, I can't, I'm not going to baby you. I can't be here to hold your hand through this, you know? And for me, whatever it was, that kind of like turned it off for whatever reason. That switch just went
Like a
off in my head.
shutdown.
And I kind of just stopped because I knew I didn't have, all right, I'm just on my own, there's got to be a way to cope with this. And basically, long story short, I felt like when I would get to a point of feeling anxious, it would never go past that. I would never get the full blown panic attack where I'd be checking my heart rate and stuff. My heart would be going a million miles an hour. Now it's to where over the years of training and stuff, dealing with it for so long, like if I start to feel anxious, that'll be the extent of it. I won't get it anymore like that.
Do you know what causes or brings on your anxiety now?
I still in a way don't, because I'll just become overwhelmed for no reason, but it ties into my depression and bipolar though.
Yeah. Of course.
So all those feelings are just it's kind of like just a gumbo of emotions, just culminating in a pot.
Name something that has caused you anxiety, for example.
Bills, not having a job, just not, I would say just like everyday things really that people go through. Just, I mean, the struggle, but something that would trigger it, there's a number of things, man. Just like, self-hatred, with self-esteem, stuff like that will trigger it. But I mean, most of the time now though, it is circumstantial. I want to say, because I feel like I've done pretty well at managing my anxiety. I still get really anxious sometimes, but it's not to the point where it's gonna ruin my day. I can go through my day and just forget about it. It's more of the depression and the manic states and the mood swings that I deal with personally. But anxiety is a huge thing. I can totally understand. That's why I empathize with people who do go through anxiety, because I've been there and I was just lucky enough to be one of the ones who was able to come out of that and get over my anxiety. Because if you're going through it right now, I promise you that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you dig deep enough, you can find that part of you to get over it and take control of it. Because it really is. It was, as much as they were telling, it was all in my head. The anxiety was in my head. Sometimes.
Oh, mental illness.
Sometimes though, you do have to take medication. I didn't want to go that route. Yeah. They offered me medication for it, and I said no, because I didn't want to become reliant on that medication, knowing that if I ever had a panic attack, that I have to go and get some pills. I wanted to know that if I had a panic attack, that I could just rely on my thinking to take me out of that. And I don't know why, whatever reason, when I was 13, 14, that was the mind state that I had and the approach I took to it. I just got lucky. Yeah, but I'm here to tell you that I feel like that's the number one route you should take first and see if that works for you.
Yeah, and anxiety could be stem on from really, really young. There's 10-year-olds out there who've committed suicide. I've heard of a 7-year-old committing suicide. They had so much anxiety that they hung themselves. And it's something that I think, looking back at the younger children that are suffering from that mental illness, it's the parents are in denial a lot of the times, or they don't know where to look or where to go.
Because you can't see
they're
it.
afraid of judgment, and no, not my kid, not. And it's harder to see something in somebody when you're with them every single day.
I hate when I see that, dude, when the parents are like so old school that they're just too ignorant to understand that there's something deeper going on. It's just because they're really just misinformed. Yeah. It's the way they were brought up, and they weren't taught to be a rational thinker like that. They were always taught to get over it and just deal with it and move about your day. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the older generations, like my parents and their grandparents, who have mental illnesses, but they didn't ever get it. It never got diagnosed, never got treated, and it was never addressed because that wasn't the thing to do.
Yeah. They just developed a way to live with it, is what it is. Because I could look back and see
that's grit, but like you shouldn't have to do that. Like it's a real thing, and you can get treatment for it, and it's something that's not how you should. That's why I would get mad when like I would see parents or anybody who would have that perspective on mental illness.
I used to get upset too, but now I look at it and I just think to myself that they are lacking knowledge.
Well, that's what we're here for, though, to provide that knowledge for people who maybe feel like, what if we get listeners that are, within that age range, 10 and up?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. You're going to have listeners all over the world, and they're going to listen to this and they're going to think. And
if I heard this when I was 13, I would feel like, oh, like now I understand why and what I'm going through, I wouldn't have felt so lost. I was completely lost, and for those people that are, that's what we're here to provide, Yeah,
and I think that people who are listening, and if you are listening right now, think back. I mean, think about your family, think about your own children, think about yourself. Is there something that is causing anxiety in your life? Is there something that's causing you to feel depression, bipolar? Go see a doctor, see a counselor, see a psychiatrist.
Yeah, big. That was a
Go
huge step,
online and look online for information. There's
dude.
plenty of
Get
information out
Medi-Cal.
there.
That's how I did it. I didn't. A big reason why I never went was because I didn't have insurance because I didn't have a job. So I just applied for Medi-Cal.
Oh
I
yeah, and
I,
there's a
I
lot of people out there
qualified,
right now.
and that was the first step I took towards getting help. And I'm already thinking of because of COVID and everything that's going on. I'm like more reluctant to go to the
Yeah,
doctor's
oh
office.
yeah.
But I mean, I'm
Well,
still considering it.
actually, right now
Well,
there's
online.
a lot of online appointments, and there's so much. You know, e- Even with COVID, we have to evolve. We have to. That's just things change throughout the years. We have to evolve, and we're finding new ways to do things. And the medical field is really come up a lot with, with the online calls, the Zoom calls with the doctor.
Do you feel like that's as effective though as being in person like we are right here? I feel like for me, I need one-on-one.
Well,
I feel like there's a disconnect on the phone or via text or email, whatever it is. I
no,
feel like there's a disconnect.
if you're on the phone, just on the phone or email, then yeah, there could be. But if you're on a live conference with the doctor, they could see you. You're looking at them, and they're looking at you. And the number one thing is you got to be open. You have to be open
Some people
because
hide stuff. They
a
still
lot of
hold
people
back.
hide stuff, and yeah, exactly. They're holding back because of the fear of the stigma. They're afraid to even get diagnosed over something. They don't want to be diagnosed. Who wants to have schizophrenia? Who wants to be bipolar? Who wants to have anxiety? Nobody does. And it's frowned upon so much, especially here in the US, but throughout the world, that you don't want to have that diagnosis.
That was the biggest thing for me when I went in to the doctor and I knew I was gonna meet with a psychiatrist. I told myself, all right, be as honest as you possibly can. Don't sugarcoat it and don't add stuff to it. Don't don't make it seem like it's something that it's not.
Be in your truth.
Yeah, I try to be as honest as I possibly could. That way I can get the correct diagnosis because they're going to diagnose you based off what you tell them. So if you're telling them symptoms that you don't have, they're going to maybe diagnose you with something else.
Something else, and then you're going to get medication that doesn't work.
And then you're just going to screw yourself even more.
Yep.
But I mean, go back to your question earlier, something that maybe triggers my anxiety is OCD. That's a form of anxiety, really. So my OCD throughout the day, not even knowing it, these stupid little rituals that I do is a form of OCD.
And it's even harder
I mean,
when you're living
anxiety.
with someone because if you have OCD and that other person is just like nonchalant, you have to deal with them too. Look at me in my household with my partner. I don't have OCD. If I see something, I'll get to it later. But he deals with OCD. So things bother him if it's not done the way it's supposed to. Well, technically in his own head, the way it's supposed to. But to me, it's like, I'm not living with that. I don't understand it. Because I don't feel it. But I'm not going to jump either. And when you need something done, it's something that you're working on, and you have to get it fixed within yourself.
Let me ask you this, and I think this is important to bring up, and it's something that I feel like a lot of people will relate to because you don't have OCD. The person you're living with does. Not knowing you know what it is a little bit, right? But more or less no, because you don't go through it. So tell me what it is that you noticed him doing as far as like rituals and stuff. How are you able to spot somebody with OCD? Because my point here is for parents who are dealing with children that have OCD or whatever it is, sometimes they don't spot it and they let it go untreated because they're ignorant to the symptoms of OCD.
And a lot of
What are
people
some things
think
that you've noticed in somebody that maybe are displaying symptoms of that?
First of all, a lot of people think that OCD is being 100% clean, having everything in order, having like labels faced outwards. That's not the case all the time. It's not the case all the time as you straighten out that cup.
I did that on purpose. Yeah.
But it could be a various things, you could have OCD but not want to do the straightening out yourself. You could have OCD and want something placed a certain way, but actually you don't want to touch it that way. You could have OCD and go and touch a doorknob 4 times or 3
So
times.
so as somebody who doesn't have it though, what are you? I mean, what are some of the things that kind of throw a red flag for you?
Not necessarily for me. I don't think of it as red flag.
No, I know,
Honestly,
but like if you're
where I recognize it,
yeah, where do you recognize it at?
where I recognize it at is people with OCD. From my own experience, I've noticed have gotten angry or an attitude because something didn't go their way or something isn't the way they want it to be.
So as a parent of a child who maybe they're suspicious that might have something like that, what should they look out for?
Their kid not wanting something wanting something a certain way, and it bothers the shit out of them because it's not that way.
I feel like too maybe I mean I think maybe cleanliness though is one of the things that they should look out for.
Oh yeah, cleanliness, yeah, but
'Cause-
it's not always the case. The majority of people, which is part of the stigma, think that OCD is nothing but cleaning and having labels faced out. No, it's not always that. There's other variations of OCD, and people need to go online and do their research on that.
Yeah, because it'll present itself in a number of different ways. Because mine, it won't necessarily present itself to where you're gonna notice it because it's in my head, but I'm
That's right.
still performing in front of you, but you wouldn't even know it.
Yeah.
So like for me, like it's certain numbers and stuff.
You could walk out of a room, and if you notice somebody like walk out of a room and then they'll like kind of pause and then go back to the room and then walk back out, that could be possibly
Yeah,
OCD.
just it's you really have to pay attention and be like laser focused on your child or your partner, whoever it is.
Whoever
if
it
you feel like
is.
they're suffering from something but aren't telling you.
Coworkers.
Yeah,
Coworkers
coworkers
too. Or
for
if
sure.
you're a business owner and you notice that, and you know this is one of the biggest things too is people in a workplace could be stigmatized without even being recognized that they have a mental health issue, and so they're frowned upon by other coworkers, but the coworkers don't realize that this person is dealing with a mental health issue. So I encourage anyone and everyone, if you yourself are feeling this issue, or you see or notice anybody else, whether it's in your workplace, your household, wherever you're at, do your research. Find out first, because they may be too embarrassed or may not even recognize or know themselves that they're suffering with some type of mental illness.
And don't be afraid to ask either. I feel like that's hard for people to approach somebody and really ask them without offending them. Like being hey, is everything okay?
Yeah,
Like
that's
are
right.
you like if there's something bothering you, you
Yeah,
gotta
I'm
please
fine.
let me know.
I'm fine, thanks.
Because that's usually what their response is. I'm
Yeah.
fine.
Exactly.
But you can usually tell if it's BS or not most of the time. Because their response. Because if somebody's usually fine, like, yeah, I'm fine. Why? Like, why are you asking? But if they're not fine, they'll be like, yeah, I'm fine.
Because even now, even when I'm not fine, I don't want to burden anybody with what I'm thinking or how I'm feeling.
Because
Sometimes
kids
I'm
always feel
guilty of
like it's
that.
their fault. Everything they do is their fault. So of course they're gonna be more reluctant to.
Or they might not admit something because they're afraid of going through the argument or getting in a way like myself. I have problems admitting something because I have that fear of getting into trouble.
I still have that. That's why
It's
I don't bring
getting
it up a
over
lot
that.
of the times. I don't want to be a burden.
Yeah,
I don't want to talk. I don't want to put that on you.
that's right.
But again, don't
And you
be.
don't want to get yelled at about it either.
I won't get yelled at, but I'm not. Don't be afraid to ask though.
Yeah, and that's our message. Don't be afraid to ask if you feel or you think anybody else is suffering with some type of mental illness. Don't right away approach them and judge them over it, because you're going to shut them down.
You have to be very careful on how you
Very
approach it.
careful, exactly. And you want to just do your research and just let them know that, hey, if you need anything, I'm here for you.
There's got to be like videos out there on how to approach somebody with it. And
Oh, yeah,
when I
there
can
is.
get my ducks in a row, I want to write down some stuff and maybe help give an idea of like how to approach somebody.
Yeah.
Like what are the steps? How can you say it and word it without offending somebody?
Yep.
Because a lot of the time they will get offended. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Oh, okay. All right.
No, I'm not hearing voices or saying things right now.
No, I know. I was like, are you still with me?
Are you going through the psychosis? No.
Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No, that pretty much wraps it up.
I feel good about this. I mean, if you want to wrap it up, we can
let's
wrap it up.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, it was good talking to you.
Hey, thank you. This is our own personal one-on-one therapy.
Tune back in next week for another episode of the PO3 Podcast. I'm Marcus Marx.
And I'm Victor Jr. Bye.